Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Dead Box. My name is Ryan, and I'm joined by,
Chris.
and this is a special edition because we recently lost a key member of the band. This is the end of an era, and it makes me kind of sad. The other day, we learned that Bob Weir passed, who was the rhythm guitar player and one of the songwriters for the Grateful Dead, and went on to form other iterations of the Grateful Dead after Jerry Garcia's passing. Most recently, Wolf Brothers and Dead and Company, who I got to see. So, yeah, this pretty sad day for us, out here in Grateful Dead land.
In that band, the just the trajectory of the Grateful Dead, if you look back at the early history of it,
Mhm.
the the place that Bob Weir has as this youngster kind of vagabond uh character who I think they kick him out of the band initially,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. At one point, they kicked him and Pigpen out, like in '68 or something, because
There
they
you go.
said he couldn't play.
There you go.
They can learn the tunes. Imagine that. Like,
Yeah. But I think that's sort of the thing is that what where the band was headed or the seriousness of which, such a seemingly carefree band are
right?
actually super serious about their music and were demanding this other level. He probably, again, being the youngster and how he matures and then the role that he takes on
Yeah,
in the Grateful Dead is is sort of a story unto itself. It seems like once Pigpen was no longer there, the need for another dynamic front person, and he started to kind of grow into that role. Am I right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, he was pretty young when he joined the band. And I think he was, like you said, he was kicked out at one point. He was more of a rhythm guitar player. He brought in like a folk background and a country kind of background. Very interesting how every member of the Grateful Dead had a different musical background. So he played off pretty well with Jerry, who was he originally a bluegrass player and a folk player. I always like to think of Bob as like Jerry's younger brother. It seemed like and then like Phil Lesh was their dad, kind of like like just like the way it looked on stage. But the way he played as a rhythm player, you'll notice a lot of people um, make comments about it because it's a very different way of being a rhythm player.
Right.
When he joined the band, I think Phil Lesh told him, listen to McCoy Tyner, who is Coltrane's piano player.
Right.
And if you think about it in that context, it makes a lot of sense. Like the way McCoy Tyner he almost backed up Coltrane like he was a rhythm player, just kind of playing the same chords, but taking it out there in terms of um, different styles of music and different time signatures, and always kind of steering the band in the right direction. So I did see something the other day that I wanted to read that um, our other Bob friend, posted. Yeah, Mr. Dillon said this about Bob Weir. So he said, then there's Bob Weir, a very unorthodox rhythm player, has his own style, not unlike Joni Mitchell, but from a different place. Plays strange augmented chords and half chords at unpredictable intervals that somehow match up with Jerry Garcia, who plays like Charlie Christian and Doc Watson at the same time. All that in an in-house writer poet, Robert Hunter, with a wide range of influences, everyone from Kerouac to Rilke, and steeped in the songs of Stephen Foster. This creates a wide range of opportunities for the Dead to make almost any kind of music and make it their own.
Very unique player because yeah, if you watch him as a rhythm player, he's never just strumming the chords. A
Mm-hmm.
typical rhythm player keeps keeps the chords present and
Right.
you know keeps the rhythm going. Where they're a band where they had just as much fun turning things inside out. So the rhythms weren't always obvious,
Hmm.
but a lot of times, as as the songs broke apart or came back together, it's sort of Bob Weir's spot that linked these pieces between Phil and Bob, that they're they're never playing the same thing,
Hmm.
but they're the two that coalesce the sound.
Right.
He did learn to play better, but he learned to play himself.
Yeah.
So as a songwriter, where does he fit into your appreciation of the Dead?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, when I grew up listening to the Dead, it was pretty young, and my introduction was through like a couple of like their greatest hits records.
Uh-huh.
So so you heard some of the songs, like you heard him singing like Mexicali Blues and playing in the band. But then you'd hear then what I did, and a lot of people did, in the '90s and before, is we started trading tapes. But in terms of like Weir and his songs, like as it grew more into the '80s, '90s, you started to see like the songs that Weir contributed. So it was like he always did a blues song in like the first set. They always did. I think it was like from the late '80s up until they were done. They always did at least a Dylan song,
Right.
and it was usually him that sang the song, which I think is cool. So he'd do like Queen Jane approximately, Destination Row. Um, he would do When I Paint My Masterpiece. He sung all of those
Yeah.
in the first set, which especially for songs like I said Destination Row, Desolation Row. He knew all the words, which was
They're selling postcards overhanging. They're painting the passports brown. The beauty parlors filled with sailors. The circus is in town. And in walks the blind commissioner. They've got him in a trance. One hand is tied to the tightrope walker. The other is in his pants. And the Rat Squad, they're restless. They need somewhere to go. As Lady and I look out tonight on Desolation Road. Cinderella, she seems so easy. Takes one to know one, she smiles. Puts her hands in her back pockets. Better Davis style. And in walks Romeo, he's moaning. You belong to me, I believe. Someone says you're in the wrong place, my friend. You better leave. And the only sound you can hear after the ambulances go is Cinderella sweeping up on Desolation Road. Now Ophelia, she's neath the window. For her, I feel so afraid. On her 22nd birthday, she already is an old maid. For her, death is quite romantic. She wears an iron vest. Her profession's her religion. Her sin is her lifelessness. And though her gaze is fixed upon God's great rainbow, she spends her time peeking in Desolation Road. Now Einstein disguised as Robin Hood with his memories in a trunk, passed this way an hour ago with his friend, the jealous monk. Oh, he looked so immaculately frightful as he bummed a cigarette, and he went off sniffing green puffs and reciting the alphabet. Oh, you wouldn't think to look at him, but he was famous long ago for playing electric violin on Desolation Road. Now the moon, it's almost hit. The stars are beginning to hide. The fortune-telling ladies already taking all the things inside, all except for Cain and Abel and the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Everybody's either making love or else expecting rain. He's dressing, he's getting ready for the show. He's going down to the carnival tonight, Desolation Road. Dr. Phil, he keeps his world inside of a leather cup, and all his sexless patients, they're all trying to blow it up. And his nurse, some local loser, she's in charge of the cyanide hole. She also keeps the cards that read, "Have mercy on his soul." They all play on the penny whistle. Yes, you can hear them blow. If you lean your head out far enough, Desolation Road.
Then there were pretty much like the songs he sung you knew were the ones he wrote or co-wrote. So he had, at first, as we all know, Robert Hunter was the songwriter, and I think he took one of Hunter's songs and changed it. And then Hunter said, "Well, that's the last song I'm writing for you. Like, get your own songwriter, essentially."
There you go.
I think it was Sugar Magnolia. And then, so Weir sang that. And then he hooked up with John Perry Barlow, who was a friend of his from when he was a kid. And so, the ones I like the most are like Estimated Prophet, Playing in the Band. I would say, like, from later era, Dead Throwing Stones. I mean, those are kind of the songs that when I think of Weir. And then there's like, he had some really good ballads, like Looks Like Rain, Black Throated Wind. Things like that are really cool. Probably so I saw the Dead twice, like as the Grateful Dead, and then I saw Dead and Company one time, some years back. And I think my favorite memory of that show was in the end of the second set, Weir sang Stella Blue, which is not a Weir song originally. It was a Jerry song, but that was pretty cool. Like that was probably one of the highlights of any show I've ever seen. It was like seeing him sing that and how quiet everybody was and just how well he carried the song. It's just very like, and you, like you said, he just kind of poured himself into what he did. And so he was this very like funny, very intelligent, but very like calm, kind of Zen like person. And that's who he gradually kind of became as he got older.
Right.
I think that came through in everything he did, which is pretty awesome.
Yes, I received your letter yesterday about the time the doorknob broke. When you asked how I was doing, was that some kind of joke? All these people that you mentioned, yes, I know that they're quite lame. Had to not unless you send them on Desolation Road.
In all the great bands, it's usually a couple folks. It's
Yeah,
Lennon and McCartney, Keith Richards and Jagger. I mean, even with Led Zeppelin, you always have
yeah.
Jimmy Page just like knocking
Page and
Robert
Plant.
Plant
Yeah.
off the stage while he's playing his solo.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Uh-huh.
it's like, but you needed both of those characters with Jerry writing songs with Robert Hunter and Pigpen being this kind of bluesy,
Yeah.
force that the early band, he really is so important to that early incarnation of the band. When he's again out of the picture, who's going to be the foil for
Yeah.
Jerry? And who's going to have this other kind of dynamic? Because Jerry would, plays incredible solos, but his voice is kind of thin. Uh, he's a Stella Blue kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's where he is.
Fragile kind of
Fragile.
voice, and
That just
different.
yeah. And where Bob Weir goes is the opposite direction. I'm going to sing the rock and roll songs. I'm going to get loud. I'm going to be this thing that Jerry isn't going to be. And
Yeah.
you say, well, that kind of completes the thought is you'd have this burst of energy
Mm-hmm.
that Bob Weir would always add to this stuff. Always a little out of control when he would get excited.
Yeah.
He'd
Yeah.
be a little out of himself,
You'd be
but I
total
think,
rock star.
yeah, as someone who's now the other voice of the band.
Yeah, and kept it obviously the stuff going after Garcia passed too, and kind of spreading the message of the Grateful Dead and their music, and then just think about how many people in that scene and beyond like played with him and like collaborated with him in different ways.
Yeah,
It just kind of touched a lot of people. I was very much like into the original Grateful Dead. I wasn't totally into all the other one, like the
yeah,
other combinations, but I always knew like he was doing the right thing. I always knew that his spirit was still there, and he was bringing this music to a whole other generation. And I think one of the oddest things he said, like he had a dream where he was playing Grateful Dead music with John Mayer, and then he formed Dead and Company. And I'm not making that up. Like I
yeah,
think he actually said that. Like
yeah,
which is interesting. It's a total Bob Weir thing to say though.
yeah.
I think when I saw him, I think it worked. I mean, it was definitely an interesting combination, but you could still kind of feel the presence. Like he just became this kind of like guru of everybody around him, just because he had all that kind of wealth of knowledge of the music, and just um, you know all those songs that he brought to us was just it's incredible.
They're saying, well, are you keeping the band going, or what's the future for, the Grateful Dead music
Yeah,
and whatnot? And he said, again, something that's very Bob Weir-like. He goes, well, the kind of present level, we'll just do what you do, but I'm more interested in if we're going to have an impact 300 years from now. The true folks aligned to the band, not the people who were showing up breaking down the gates at the end of their career, but the people
right.
who followed them as a band of songs as much as a band of performances, uh,
Yeah,
that they're rare. What they do is rare. Their
definitely.
impact is massive, and it will be interesting. I don't know about you, I might only last 250 years. So I might not know about
Yeah.
300 years from now, but I'll let
Hey,
you know. I'll write back.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you can definitely make that case, and I think the Grateful Dead to me are like aside from jazz and things like that, are probably the quintessential American band.
Mhm.
Just because they embody so many different types of music, and they couldn't keep a keyboardist to save their life, but like, the people who passed through, they all kind of brought something new to the band. Um, and yeah, I think Weir is right. Like I think it will endure as like just like a message, but also um, I don't want to say time capsule, but it really embodied a certain time period that transcends that time, right? So of course, you had the '60s, but then fans of the Grateful Dead. Some say they were responsible for making the internet. Like we need a way to catalog these songs and all these statistics and communicate with each other. And so that's kind of a pretty interesting thing to think about. That the Grateful Dead has kind of spawned all these things, and one of them
Yeah.
was the internet. And you have, of course, like this whole culture around the band, everything from their sound and all the way to people who were heavily involved with their road crew. They're still around, some of them talking about their experiences. You're nothing like it, really.
Yeah. Bob Weir sort of stood as this, kind of last verification. And so now it sort of is the test. There will still be spin-offs of this music, as it should be.
Definitely.
How is it celebrated? How is it passed on to other generations? It was kind of the last word on how to proceed with this music.
Definitely. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll see, right? I
Yeah.
know I'll keep playing it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, typically we come in with a record for Dead Box, and so one thing I was thinking about, and I put this on. It was something I picked up from Record Store Day a long time ago. It's great, Grateful Dead, and it's one song. It takes up two sides of vinyl. And so the first side is 21 minutes, the second side is 24 minutes. And the song is playing in the band, which Bob Weir wrote, sang on. The location is Seattle, Washington, 52174. So, folks, this is a 45-minute live version of playing in the band. You're not going to get any better than that. I'm sorry. And Bob Weir, of course, has a big hand in this song. Um, we were talking a little bit ago about how sometimes a song would come into the Dead, and it would become this like jam vehicle, and they really take it out there. The first like recorded version of Dark Star was like 2.5 minutes, and I think the longest live versions were up in the 40-minute region. So same with this song. It was something that very simple, kind of catchy, but then it was able to be expanded in a live platform and shown different avenues. This particular recording was from the Wall of Sound era, so it's where they really had on the market the best kind of sound system you can ask for in a live setting, where anywhere in the room you can hear it and you can hear every instrument. It just became very tedious for them to carry that around and set up and do that. But I think it's great. It's probably one of my favorite eras of live Grateful Dead is 72 up to 74. It's probably for
Right.
me, just that's where they really kind of hit their stride. They went down to one drummer, and so it became near the end of that particular era like they were playing jazz, like jazz fusion and doing things like that. So if you can find it, if not, I think it's part of a bigger box set, and that's one of the main songs on there. But can you imagine that being in a show and seeing that, like having no idea the song starts 45 minutes later, they're gonna wrap it up. I
Right.
mean,
Right. I hope you brought your lunch. And I knew when this happened that we had to kind of use our our connection through the dead box to just chime in
yeah,
on an important person in Bob Ware.
absolutely. He will be missed.